What's up? Oh, come on now. What's up, friends? My name's... Oh, come on now. My name's Aaron Ciotti. Everybody calls me Ciotti. I forgot my microphone, so this is the crappy laptop mic. And it would appear that the computer problems continue. So we're going to see if the laptop decides to cooperate. And if it doesn't, I don't know, maybe we'll shut this down and we'll just reconvene tomorrow night. Do me a favor, guys. I love that that you want to try to help, but do me a huge favor and don't try to troubleshoot my live streaming problems in the chat. It just infuriates me. Like I said, I appreciate that you're trying to help, but I have about 30 different things that I do to troubleshoot the live streaming. 10 to 20 of which I have to do pretty much every single time I stream. So yeah. Wow, come on. Please, just one time when I go to live stream, can you act the same as you did last time, laptop? Just once? Guess not. Let me read through chat, and if this isn't better by the time I get caught up, I think I'm just gonna shut this down because I'm very angry right now because I've spent the last 45 minutes trying to get this to work at all, and this is just ridiculous. Apache Smoke Wounded Sniper says, "What's up? Ready for another great ready for another live stream? Not a great one, that's for sure." Mr. Huggy says, "Tonight we watch CiottiFPV lose where he is on the chat many times on this week's Sunday Q&A." Edoc says, if Ciotti doesn't lose where he is in the chat, is it even a Ciotti stream? Folks in the chat, Apache Smoke Wounded Sniper, Mr. Huggy, Doc, Cool Coyote, Dan636, KOFPV, King Turkey, T-Birds in the house, Nardog, Ricardo Ferreira, Ferreira, I'll get it right someday, Ricardo. Family Guyver, Dragon Wing, Den636, Freelojo, Graham P, Four Little Pigs, Flush FPV, Family Guyver again, Thurberg, Dragon Wing again, Daniel Harmon, Tweet FPV's in the house. What's up, Dan? Robert Garcelone. I'll leave it there. If you want the Gangly Man to say your name, probably mispronounce it. Gotta get in early. Gotta say something in the chat. Oh man, this is infuriating. Unbelievably, this is my full-time job. If you want to support me, I don't know why you would. Over to CiottiFPV.com. Bunch of different ways you can help me out. Most of the money will go to talk therapy, to try to forget this infinite frustration that is dealing with technology and attempting to be a live streamer. So let me get off of this scene so that the delay is not as. There we go. Let's try this again. I'm going to leave it on this scene so that the horrible delay is small down here. And hopefully it won't drive you guys completely insane. I don't know if I'd be able to deal with it, but hey, it is what it is. Four Little Pig says, morning all. CiottiFPV, you got that DJI stuff sorted. Yeah, it's a learning curve. It's we'll talk a little bit about it here today. What I like about it, what I don't like about it. I mean, what I like about it is what everybody likes about it. You can see where you're going, and the signal strength is pretty good. But there are a lot of drawbacks. My God, there are a lot of drawbacks to DJI. The biggest one is OSD. The OSD is just awful, and I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to live with how bad the OSD is, because it's made me realize how important proper OSD really is. And I'm really struggling without it. Like, I'm over discharging batteries constantly. The rig fell out of the sky at one point because I over discharged the battery so bad, because the OSD is just useless. It's just shit. So yeah, it's kind of wild. I don't know. I feel like it's 5 years ago when I first started flying, and there was no OSD. And I feel like I'm going to have to start to figure out, like I did back then, how to get the telemetry into the transmitter so that I can set up audible alerts on the transmitter, which is just, I mean, that's just insane in 2022. But I don't know, maybe with the root hack, maybe somebody can actually make an OSD that functions and isn't completely worthless. But man, yeah, I'm really surprised at how terrible the OSD is in DJI. It's really like kind of a joke. But yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit here when chat slows down. Getting caught up on chat here. Apache says, "Don't worry." Hubert says it's because we're talking bad about DJI. Abraham with a $4.99 super chat. Thank you, dude. Thank you. Super chats still work. Buy some Excedrin for the migraine. YouTube just have you. Tweet FPV with a $2 live chat. What are they called? Super chat? That's it. Super chat. Thank you, Dan. He says to make the streaming gods happy. Oh, if I only knew how to do that. Thank you, dude. Daniel Harmon says, yeah. Abraham says, sick video. Dan636 with a $10 super chat. My God, thank you, man. He says, I love you, bro. Thanks for putting up with the headache of streaming for us. We really appreciate you and your efforts. Thank you, dude. I appreciate that very much. Yeah, so there's still a nasty delay. That little intro video was the 4th time, I think, that I've flown the Mavic 2 Pro. Shout out to McConnell Studios for sending that over. The 3rd time I flew it was actually at the gig on Thursday. The majority of the work that I did on the Thursday gig was with the Mavic, unbelievably. Although I only really did about a half an hour of work on that gig. It was a really big production. It was a really big budget music video for Little Baby. There were $6 million in a minimum of $6 million in Rolls Royces as the backdrop for this gig, and Rolls Royces basically start at somewhere around $500,000, and there were 12 of the damn things. And yeah, I sat around all day. Production got delayed quite a bit, and FPV tends to be like B-roll-ish stuff. So if the main shots get delayed, there is a pretty decent chance that you'll only get to fly one battery, or in this case, you really won't get to fly at all. So I didn't get to fly FPV at the main setup, but they wanted to put the 12 cars in a circle, and so the director of photography was like, "Yo," and they were having trouble getting them all lined up properly because it's really difficult to do that with cars. It's really hard to get cars like lined up perfectly, and then trying to put them in a circle is really, really difficult. So they were like, "Yo, can you put a drone up in the air that just looks straight down?" And I was like, "I just happen to have one that'll do exactly that." So I parked the Mavic up in the air for a half an hour, and they had the screen, my phone screen to just kind of look at and go like, "All right, move that one to the left, move that." And it's still hard. It's still hard to do it, even with a camera up in the air. But eventually they got it done, and yeah, like I said, there was just no time for me to fly. But then they did take the cars out. They had a bunch of cops. Man, the security on the set was pretty wild. I've never seen anything like it. There must have been a dozen security guards and cops there. So yeah, they had the cops shut down a bunch of the streets around his old neighborhood, and they attempted to take these 12 Rolls Royces nose to tail and drive them around and get some footage. They had one of those wild camera cars with the big ass boom arms on it. That was what they were getting the majority of the footage with. And then I was able to fly like a battery to try to get a little bit of FPV footage. It wasn't great. We lost the light pretty quickly because of all the delays. But I got what I could. I got whatever I could. The other problem is that the cars, they must not have told the drivers that they need to bunch up, because all the drivers were leaving like 2, 3, 4 car lengths in between each one of the cars. So 12 cars with a bunch of car lengths in between them ends up being like a quarter of a mile long train. And so what they wanted was a top-down kind of look. So I flew the Cinewhoop because the ducts prevent it from going very fast. So in order to go any kind of speed with the Cinewhoop, you got to really bury the nose. Well, that was kind of perfect for what they were looking for, because they wanted top-down. So I went up in elevation and did that. But by the point, like, I was so, in order to get more than like 4 or 5 of these cars in the frame, I had to go like 200, 300 feet up, and then at that point you can't even tell that they're Rollses. It just looked like a traffic jam, so it was just kind of silly. So I ended up just bailing on that, and I just came down and I did a couple head-on passes where I kind of like weaved in and out of the cars a little bit, and then I did a couple where I accelerated past the cars, and then that was kind of it. They planned this loop that the cops shut down all the lights and blocked all the traffic and whatnot. But we lost light so quick that we only got halfway around the route before they just said, "We're done. This is." It was also kind of a mess trying to get the cops were like railing past these cars in the opposite lane to try to get up to the next road to close it down. It was really sketchy, man. The cops were really being insane. But you know, we got what we could. But yeah, it got shut down pretty quick. It was, the cops were being kind of reckless. It really felt dangerous because of the cop cars, and they were ruining all the shots too because they kept blasting. There were like half a dozen cop cars that kept like getting in the wrong lane and railing down at like 60, 70, 80 miles an hour to try to leapfrog the group. So like every time we tried to get a shot, there'd be a cop car with blues and twos on. Just it was really crazy. I was kind of glad that they shut it down because it was starting to feel pretty sketchy. But yeah, we got some stuff. They seem to be really happy with it. We'll see if it makes it into the final edit. I'll be actually really interested to see if any of it makes it in there. I did get one Mavic shot that I think will be in there. It was a classic kind of hover at low, talent goes underneath, looks up at it, and then you just punch the throttle and just elevator up. I did it once without spinning, and then they're like, "Can you do it with a spin?" I'm like, "Yeah, if you want to be like everybody else." So I did it a second time with yaw rotation on the way up. I have a feeling they'll use that. You know, that's like that super stereotypical Mavic shot Mavic Phantom shot that everybody always wants. So they'll probably use that. I don't know if they'll use the FPV footage, which is pretty funny. It's kind of hysterical to me that my third time flying a Mavic was on the biggest production that I've ever been on, and they were like blown away by it. And I'm like, you know, you could have grabbed somebody off the street to do this, but you know, not really. You know, not safely, not like with any kind of confidence. So yeah, it was cool. I was out in the sun all day. I got there at noon. I didn't get out of there until like 8, 9 o'clock at night. But I got my day rate, which is great. I got very sunburned. But you know, I was just working on my base all day. I got paid my day rate to work on my base. If anybody has just joined and they're wondering why it's not full screen, it's because the laptop is being a total dick and there's a humongous delay. And it's kind of hard to watch someone's mouth follow, you know, 2 seconds behind the actual audio. If anybody's wondering why the audio sounds so bad, it's because I forgot my microphone at home. So I'm having to use the mic on the laptop. Hopefully you guys can I assume that you can hear what I'm saying. I'm sure it sounds pretty bad though, but doing the best that I can. Daniel Harmon says, what's a good mic for streaming? I have no clue, man. But luckily, lots of streamers hang out here on YouTube. So just go up to the YouTube search bar and, yeah, just type that question into the YouTube search bar, and I'm sure a whole bunch of people way more qualified than me will give you some good answers. I feel like I've heard that the... Oh, God, what's the name of the company? You'll find the answer. There's one mic that like a lot of people suggest. It'll be like the most common answer. I forget what it's called. It might be made by Streamlabs. I forget. But when you do a search here on YouTube, there'll be one mic that like everybody talks about is really, really good. And yeah, so that's the one. Apache Smoke says, it's always a great live stream. Just too bad the equipment fails sometimes. You still rock, mate. Thank you, dude. T-Bird says, no sound, no sound, no sound, no sound, no sound. Dan636 says, delay isn't bad on this scene. It's still pretty bad. It's still like over a second. Michael Blade says, hey. Cool Coyote says, been flying with no OSD for a while now. Of course, YouTube did the thing. Cool Coyote says, been flying with no OSD for a while now, and it is dreadful. Makes you appreciate what you have. Yeah, it really does. It really, really, really does. Like I remember way back when the first rig that I ever got OSD on. I remember being like, wow, this is nice. This is really, really, really nice. But, you know, that kind of goes away pretty quick. When you get something new that's nice, you tend to take it for granted pretty quickly. You definitely don't take it for granted, though. Never take anything for granted. Only ever take it for granted. It's when you then get used to something and then you lose it that you feel like, yeah, you feel like you've lost a limb. And yeah, that's kind of what I feel like with flying DJI right now. I feel very out of touch with the quad because of the lack of proper OSD. But I don't know. Maybe I'll get used to it. Maybe I guess on my transmitter I'll have to set up all of the Audible stuff again. I guess I'll have to figure out how to get telemetry back into the transmitter, and then I'll have to go in and set up Audible alarms for battery low and for RSSI low and all that stuff. Because yeah, the way that the DJI setup has the OSD, it's just unreadable, and it's so small that like you can't possibly see it out of the corner of your eye. Like, you have to completely stop flying and, like, look down at it. And the other thing that I notice is that the refresh rate is very slow on it. So you can't just, like, glance at it. You have to stare at it. And you have to, like, stop flying in order to stare at it. And it's just bad, man. My God. I'm really staggered at how bad what I'm surprised about is that more people don't bail on DJI. I'm really shocked at how many people are willing to deal with basically no OSD. I am gonna try the other huge thing is the lack of warnings. My God, apparently I live and die by those warnings. Because now not having them, that's a big part of the problem. Like, not having the warnings to rely on is a big part of what makes me like very nervous when I fly on DJI and very out of touch with what the quad is doing. Don't get me wrong. It is just amazing to be able to see where I'm going, but being able to see where I'm going while not feeling in touch with what the quad is up to it really, um, yeah, it really takes me out of it. I don't feel like I'm flying anymore. I feel like I'm flying the quad. Like on analog, I feel like I'm in the quad and I'm flying around the sky. But with DJI, I feel like I'm flying the quad and kind of, yeah, it really takes me out of it. It's super interesting. I can't believe that I haven't heard more people kind of complaining about this. I am going to try, there is a crazy thing that Joshua has a video about where uh, it's a hex you got to download, and then you put it into beta flight, and basically it forces your pilot name, which is one of the few fields that you're allowed to, one of the few useful OSD elements that you're allowed to use in DJI. It changes your pilot name to be your LQ, which, again, that's one of the other things that not having makes me super nervous. It gives you LQ, and it also gives you warnings. It puts it all into the pilot name field, so by default, it has the LQ numbers in there, but then when a warning pops up, it overwrites that LQ, so you lose your LQ when the warnings pop up, which is kind of insane, but it's, I mean, how else are you going to do it? So I am going to try that. I have, yesterday I was farting around with the second set of goggles in spectator mode to get ready for this live flying gig next month. And I did start figuring that out. So that was kind of cool. That worked pretty well. Man, the difference in quality is wild between the goggles that are in spectator mode and my main goggles. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, where I'm flying, it certainly sounds like it. It certainly sounds like where I'll be flying from at this bicycle race will be close to where where I'm flying. So yeah, in theory, the spectator goggles into the smart controller that Joshua is going to let me borrow should be okay. I'm a little worried, but this is apparently one of the best ways to get live footage. It's certainly the easiest way. The other ways to get live footage are much more complicated and expensive. So yeah, I mean, this will be, for what it is, it's probably going to be great, to be really honest. But, you know, impossible standards and all. It's like, oh, it breaks up a little bit when I go pretty far away. So, yeah, I'm going to keep kind of playing around with it. I got to, should I be on, what do you guys think? Should I be on 25 or 50 megabits per second? Like, I feel like I should be on 50, but I don't know. I'm probably going to test them both. But yeah, it's going to be high quality mode, focus mode off. Unless I run into, I hope it's definitely going to be high quality mode rather than low latency, because the latency is not going to really matter. The whole point of it is to get the footage out, not for me to fly well. My flying is going to be very boring and very just swoop in, pick up a bicycle rider, track them, swoop out. So definitely high quality mode. I turned off focus mode because it's going to be better quality throughout the entire frame with that off. But if it starts breaking up and stuff and getting angry, I guess I'll turn focus mode back on. I mean, I can kind of do that on the fly. I'm curious about 25 versus 50. I'm not sure what to do there. I haven't tested it. I didn't have time to test that yesterday. What's the deal with the public channel on, like, should I be on the, although no, I can't. So I went onto the public channel on my main goggles, and then on the spectator goggles, I couldn't get there. What's the deal with that? Is it only for, would I have to bind those spectator goggles to another quad? Like, what's the point of a spectator channel if you can't watch the goddamn spectator channel? Is it just me? Hey, here's another question that Patrick let me know about. Why is it that when you go into the goggles, right, and you're on, let's say you pick channel 6, you fly, when you first pick the channels, the signal strength is whatever. You pick the channel, it's good. You fly a battery. You unplug that battery, you plug a new battery in. Why is it that when I go back in and I look at the channel that I'm on, the signal strength is really low, but all the other channels, the signal strength is really high? So you pick any other channel and you have high signal strength. But if you stay on that same channel in the OSD, in DJI's pull down OSD, it says that you have terrible signal. Do you have to change, what Patrick does to get around that is every single battery he flies, he changes channel. Every single time he plugs in a fresh battery, he goes in the menu and goes from channel 6 to 7, and then 7 to 6 on the next battery, and then 6 to 6. He just bounces back and forth. Is that, does anybody care about that, or does nobody look? Is nobody looking at the little graphical meter? It's got the 4 bars, and then the bars fill up, Has anybody else noticed that? Has anybody tested that? Has anybody even remotely paid any attention to that? Anyone? What's up, Double A? Compost Pile with a 725 super chat. Thank you, brother. He says, my rip squeak's been slicing and dicing. Thank you. You're certainly welcome, brother. Daniel Harbin says, I love the intro flying. Thanks, dude. Yeah, the intro again was just the Mavic. That's the Chattahoochee River here in northeastern Atlanta. It goes all the way from the Buford Dam down to, I actually don't know how far down it goes, but that little spot right there that we were at, that Maggie and I were at, that's like my secret little sort of meditation spot. It's this really out of the way little, I don't think it's a national park, but I think it's a state park. It's a state park. Nobody really knows about it. It's a little trail, and then there's that little wooden observation deck thing right in front of the river. Flows pretty quickly, and then there's a bunch of rocks out there. So there's just this really cool soundtrack. That's a spot that I went last year quite a bit when life was basically falling apart. So that I did a lot of healing at that spot, and it was cool to get the Mavic up in the air and just kind of putz it around. I'm getting a little bit more used to the way that the gimbals kind of work, and it's really one of the things that I dig about the Mavic is how it's the challenge is being infinitely soft with everything. If you're not unbelievably gentle on the gimbals, it just, even with I have the expo turned all the way up and I have the softness turned all the way up and all this stuff, I still do want to play a little bit more with that with some of the expo settings, but they're pretty aggressive already. Yeah, it's a really fun game for me, at least, of how slowly can I move these gimbals so that just running it straight or using the throttle is simple. The gimbal handles everything. You just push forward and it runs perfectly forward. It's fine. Backwards is fine. And then the throttle, it has so little horsepower that every single elevation change that you make is super, super, super gentle. But yaw and to some extent roll, which just comes off as slide because of the gimbal, specifically the yaw and the gimbal up and down, those are really tough to get perfectly smooth, and they become, because of how smooth the gimbal makes everything, when you yaw or when you gimbal up and down, if you're just ever so slightly too aggressive on it, there's this big notch that happens, and it just looks awful, to me at least. Again, impossible standards, right? But I mean, the whole point of that thing is for it to be on the gimbal and infinitely smooth. So it's been a really fun game for me of kind of getting used to that. Where it's really fun is when I'm not throttled all the way up. like on the left stick, I'll be throttled up like let's say 50% to raise elevation, and I'll have a little bit of yaw in there, and I'll want to change the throttle position but maintain the exact same amount of yaw. So I'll have to like really pay attention to raising that left thumbstick perfectly vertical, because if I move it to the left or right at all, it's going to change that yaw rate, and it's really, really, really noticeable. So yeah, I really dig that. There is way more skill in flying the Mavics than I ever thought, which is in this like ultimate smoothness kind of way, right? Like for surveying and stuff like that, it's whatever. You just jam the sticks around and look at the roof for the antenna or whatever it may be. But trying to create like super just completely smoothed out footage with it does take some time and some thought and effort, and those are all things that I dig. So yeah, I actually had I only had one battery that was still charged at that spot yesterday, so I only flew it for, but that was actually kind of perfect, like that half an hour or so that was up in the air. I got enough footage to do a really cool little like 3.5 minute edit. Yeah, so that was actually really fun. Yeah, terrible company, but good lord, do they make some good stuff. Athix says, did you see Vanover's Universal video? I did not. I don't watch any of his stuff. I don't. Yeah, politically, not. Yeah, I'm not going to talk anymore about that though. T-Bird says you can sell volts and amps and other battery info in anywhere you want in OSD. True, but with how bright the image is, and I know you can darken it down, but and how small the OSD elements are, they just completely disappear. So what I've had to do is shrink the camera view down to 80%, which I like anyway. One of the other things that's driving me nuts is like when the goggles are on, I have to look up a lot. Even with like 30-degree up tilt, I find myself looking upwards at the top of the screen, and the top of the screen is a lot higher than with, I think it's because it's so much of a wider field of view, or it might just be because, you know, they're not even goggles, they're a helmet. But yeah, I find myself like looking up like this the whole time, which kind of has been hurting my eyes a little bit, and it also like kind of puts me off balance. It's really awkward. Weirdly, I'm also finding that I'm like putting my head up. Like when I come and I fly back, every single time I fly home and I like look at myself before I land, I'm like this. I guess because I'm looking, my eyeballs are looking up. That's making my head look up. So yeah, to help with that and to help with the OSD, I've shrunken the field of view down to 80%, and that gives me a black bar on the bottom where I can put a bunch of the elements so that I can actually read them. But then the problem becomes, I mean, the main problem is how stupidly small they are. I just don't, like, what the hell? What is this real life? Like, is this really happening? And then they're all the way at the bottom, right? Like I put them pretty far down in the Fat Shark OSD, but like, again, I guess because the field of view isn't so big. Yeah, they're in Fat Sharks, the OSD is readable from your peripheral vision. You can fly the quad, and in your peripheral vision, you can see the OSD. So you can just fly. So far, with DJI, in order to get any info from the OSD, I have to stop flying and look at it. And that is not a good flight experience, in my opinion. So that's what's really killing me. Uh, I have looked at Oscar Liang has an article like how to get set up with DJI, and in there he broke out every single OSD element that does and doesn't work. And I've gone through that a couple of times, and I've gone through every single element um, and added them. Even if he says they don't work, I'm like, oh, maybe they've updated something. Nope, uh, no updates. And he put that up in like 2020, I think. I was like, great. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I've been through it top to bottom. I have every single element that could possibly help me out, and it's yeah, it just sucks, man. DJI OSD blows goats. I have proof. Dragonwing says you do use custom OSD on DJI. What OSD elements specifically are you messing? I don't know an actual list, but yeah, I'm using the custom one. Dan636. Balls. That was YouTube doing the thing, by the way. Did you guys see it? Thanks for the super chat flush. I'm almost there. Dan636 says, I'm sorry, maybe I should worse with my antenna. It's all good. I know it's not. You guys don't need to apologize. I know that you weren't trying to piss me off. It's just, you know. Flush FPV, thank you, brother, for the $5 super chat. Very cool of you. He says, I ordered the 3-inch Acrobrat frame. Gonna put the Ethics Flat Rats 1507 2800 kV motors. What's your opinion? First time building a 3-inch. 1507 is kind of like an old school motor size, 2020 or so. Those were the first of the smooth running micro motors that we really got. Unfortunately, that motor size is not all that great. That's way too much stator height and not enough stator width. So what those motors tend to do is overheat quite a bit. And that leaves you with a setup where, like, if you ever go full throttle, the motors will overheat, and then if you have to go full throttle again, they'll be pretty serious. When the motors overheat, the magnets lose some of their magnetism, and you get less power. So 1507s are they're a motor that will make a shitload of power for just like a split second, and then they'll make a varying degree of like less power. So like every time you dip into the throttle, depending on how much throttle you were using a second ago, you're going to get a different amount of power. They're also pretty rough on batteries because they're such a tall stator. So yeah, I haven't heard anything about the Ethics specific 1507s. 2800 kV is a pretty low kV. You're going to be kind of forced to run 6S on those. If I'm totally honest, Flush, if those motors are still like on the way, I would return them if you got them from somewhere that is, you know, not Banggood or AliExpress basically. I would return those motors. They're just back in 2020. Like I said, they were the best that we had. But since 2020, a lot of much better sized motors have come out. I don't really understand. I guess I understand. Ethics doesn't really spend any time flying or paying any attention to micros. What I was about to say is I have no idea why they would come out with a 1507 motor this year or late last year when those came out. But yeah, the reason is that they just don't spend any time on 3-inch. So they just looked at, you know, hey, what are other people? They probably like looked at Rotor Riot and they're like, what's Rotor Riot have for a 3-inch motor? Oh, 1507, cool. Just do that. Because yeah, the micro world has kind of moved on. So yeah, a much better choice for the best motors. I'd probably put 15, 20 different motors on the Acrobrats way back when those frames were being prototyped and made. And Tommy and I were talking all the time about them. I put a lot of different motors on that frame. The best ones I ever put on there, Pyrodrone cells. They're the X-Nova 1804s in 3500 kV. And then the propeller that you want is the T-Motor 3140. That little combo is as good as it's going to get on the Acrobrat frame. and you can run a battery as small as a 4S850 or maybe even the 4S700 GNB yellow labels. I would definitely try that 700 mAh battery. The one big problem with the Acrobat frame is it's a solid base plate and it's only 3mm carbon. So if you crash into anything other than grass, you're going to break that Acrobat frame. And then with a solid base plate frame, when you break the frame, it's a lot of work. You got to take the entire rig apart, and then you got to put it all the way back together in the new frame when you get it. This is one of the reasons that I moved away from the Acrobat, is I just got tired of the frames breaking. They broke a lot for me. And then I got tired of the 2-3 hours of work that it would take every single time that the solid base plate would break to rebuild, completely disassemble and completely rebuild the entire thing. So what you need to do is keep that build as light as possible for that frame, right? The lighter that build is, the less energy that's going to go into that solid base plate when you do crash. So yeah, that's what I would suggest. If you want to lighten it up even more, the Toka 1505s might be a good choice. The only problem with the Toka 1505s is they only have a 2mm motor shaft, whereas the really nice thing about the X-Nova 1804s is they have a 3mm motor shaft. Much, much, much stronger. The Toka 1505s, if you crash inverted and the motor hits the ground, it's going to wreck the motor. You're going to have to replace the motor. The X-Novas can take a whole bunch of hits directly to the motors with that 3mm motor shaft before they bend. I don't actually think I've bent a single one of the X-Nova 1804 motor shafts, which is pretty ridiculous because I crash pretty much every battery that I fly. So yeah, there's some sort of feedback for you. I would definitely try to get out of those motors though. Between that frame and those motors are not going to really, yeah, I wish they wouldn't sell those motors. I really don't understand why they do. But a lot of people just buy ethics stuff because of, the name of the pilot that kind of started that brand. So you're not the only one, man. Lots and lots and lots of people have bought those motors and kind of been, sometimes they're not disappointed because sometimes they won't fly someone else's setup or any other motors. And those motors fly. They for sure fly. And good God, do they have a lot of power. But they've actually got way too much power, and they deliver that power in a way that's very hard to have proper control of. If it's your first or second rig, you probably won't notice it. You'll notice that your batteries get obliterated pretty quickly. But from a flight perspective, if it's like your first or second rig, like I said, you might not be good enough to really notice it. But as you get better as a pilot, it will certainly hold you back, which is why, I don't want to be the one breaking the bad news to you, but I also don't want you to plateau because you've got these motors that overheat so quickly and are very inconsistent when you add throttle. You know what I mean? I would rather be the bearer of bad news and run the risk of you hating me because I trashed on something you just spent your hard-earned money on. Which is why I say, if there's any possibility of you returning those motors, I would definitely try to do that. It's going to be worth the pain in the ass of returning them to get a motor that performs a lot better and is going to grow with you as a pilot. Hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully you don't hate me now. CiottiFPV says, what elements on your DJI OSD are you missing? Like I said a minute ago, I don't know them all offhand, but off the top of my head, the warnings, LQ, yeah, I don't know. But that's actually not the big problem. The big problem is how incredibly unreadable the the OSD elements are. So yeah. Abraham says, if you put the LQ mod in, you will get warnings back. Yep. It is in the plans. I'm probably going to knock that out this week. Dan636, unfortunately, you have to put it individually on each quad, which is silly, but not surprising at all. Dan636 says, that's the one reason I haven't bought into the DJI system, no OSD. I'm sure Chad is about to jump on me, though. Yeah, not no OSD, but just the worst possible OSD I could imagine. Like, I just... And the... What the hell is the deal with the megabits per second and the latency being all the way down on the right, like jankily off? Like, what? What is happening? What is the deal? Like, Graybush says I should use 50. It's Dart says less latency on 25. DatFPV says 25 if you fly with others, 50 if by yourself. TweetFPV with the real answer, though, he says you can't do spectator mode at 50, only 25. Okay, so I have to keep it on 25. So I'm going to keep flying 25 because I'm trying to get adapted to DJI exactly as it's going to be at this live flying gig that I've got coming up on April 9th. I can't believe it's actually so soon. Cool. All right. So, and I've been on 25 megabits. That's what Patrick, I gave the goggles to Patrick. I was like, yo, he knows about the gig. I was like, yo, set these up the way that you think I need to have them set up for this gig. And he did, and he told me what he was doing, and then I forgot a whole bunch of what he said. So, all right, I'm going to be on, good. I've had it on high quality mode. I've had it on 25, and I've been moving the power up and down. I kind of settled on 500 because I'm, because I have to have low temperature mode off in order for it to output to the smart controller, and I'm worried about it cooking the vistas before the event. At the event, I'll probably rail it. I'll almost certainly rail it all the way up to 1200 to get as much signal back to the spectator goggles as possible. Cool. All right. I'm glad that I've been on 25 megabits per second because that's what I've been kind of getting used to. Dragonwing says always 50 when you fly alone or with only one other person. Yarb says public channel is awesome. Thank you, Yarb. Public channel is the channel it uses at boot, so then it moves to a different one, I believe. Interesting. T-Bird says stay off 6. It's your startup. Okay. I was always going to the very last channel, which I think is 7. So that's good to know. Although at this event there won't be anybody else, so I won't really have to worry about that. But that's really good to know. Scott Gillen says, "What's up there, bud? Hope all is well." Some as well, Scott. Certainly not all. I'm very angry at technology right now. Thus the shitty stream layout. But there's like a second and a half delay between the audio and the video for no real reason, just because, streaming is a nightmare. Dragonwing says, no point in swapping channels, the bars don't matter, megabits per second does. Interesting, okay. Rick says, we're seeing the wrong input. Nope, Rick, it's just there's a terrible delay, and it's very hard to watch someone's face full screen when there's like a second and a half delay between the visual of their mouth and what you're hearing in your audio. Kuka says, did you switch all your quads to digital? Or you still fly analog sometimes? I will definitely not be switching everything to digital. With the OSD being this bad, I mean, I was already not planning on doing that because there are certainly things that analog does way better than digital outside of OSD. So yeah, there were no plans of switching everything off of digital. Now that I see how shit the OSD is, there's no way in hell I'm switching everything over to digital. At the gig on Thursday, actually, I flew analog, and I'm really glad that I did. So yeah, digital will be on some rigs. I'm thinking it's basically going to be half and half. And I'm also kind of thinking that I'm going to have to bring both, which is not the end of the world. My bag will hold fat sharks. There's a specific pouch that's kind of like round and then flat on the bottom that only the fat sharks really fit properly in. So I'm just going to keep putting the fat sharks in there. And there's a pouch where I used to put a second battery bag. But you know what I realized is that I don't love the idea of having my battery bags inside of my main flying bag. Because if a battery goes up, it's going to put all that heat and gas and awfulness inside where my transmitter is, where all my other stuff is, right? So by taking the battery bags out of my main backpack, I've now got these two big slots that fit the DJI helmets perfectly. So yeah, I think basically what I'm going to start doing is bringing both. Just bring an analog Cinewhoop, a digital Cinewhoop, an analog 5-inch rig, a digital 5-inch rig, and then depending on the scenario, when I get there, I pick which one to fly. If I'm flying like downtown Atlanta, like around buildings and stuff, it's going to be analog for sure, because digital just randomly shutting off because of some, God knows what weirdo signal pissed it off is completely unacceptable. And analog doesn't just do that, right? It starts to break up and you still get some semblance of video that you can maybe make a sort of safe landing with. And also, having the better OSD is going to really help out with that as well. But if I'm in a scenario where there's a lot of scraggle, for example, then I'm going to be flying DJI for sure. I mean, essentially, situations where being able to see better is the big thing, I'll use DJI. Every other situation where I don't need to see specific little details, I'm going to be flying analog. And yeah, I'm going to push myself to try to fly DJI as much as possible. But at the drop of a hat, I will go to the analog setups, because yeah, there's just a lot of benefits, a lot of benefits to analog over DJI. Where are we at here? Good question, Cool Clarity. Paul McDonald says you can also get a second controller for it to have one person controlling the camera and the other person flying. I didn't realize you could do that on the Mavic. That's pretty cool. That's super cool, actually. That would really, really help. I mean, actually, you could do it with the same controller because you can push on the screen and drag your finger around and move the gimbal. So, ooh, that'd be fun to do with Maggie, actually. I'm gonna do that next time. Next time her and I go out with it, I'm gonna. McConnell sent an iPad actually, and I'm waiting on a cable. I need the cable to hook it up. But a great big iPad screen, and we can just stand next to each other, and then Maggie can just push on the. I mean, you can do it on the phone screen, but it's awful small. But yeah, she can just push and hold on the iPad screen, and then just drag her finger around to control the gimbal. And that'll be really cool. That would be really slick because it's real smooth. You can just move your finger a little bit and then just gimbal down, gimbal to the side. It's really powerful, man. That's the other thing that I'm kind of shocked about is how powerful the Mavic 2 is and how there are just shots that you can get on it that you can't get from FPV. Specifically these sideways sliding shots, which are really fucking cool, man. Being able to slide sideways at 30, 40 miles an hour with the image completely flat and locked in. Ooh, that's cool. That's really, really, really cool. Technically, you can do it in FPV with Real Steady Go. You can just fly your rig at whatever angle that you need to be at to track at the appropriate speed. And then if you put on horizon lock, most of the time, Real Steady Go will be able to lock the horizon flat. But the problem is it's going to have to zoom in like crazy. On the Mavic, when you do that move, you're using the full sensor because the gimbal is keeping the sensor flat. So you'll get way, way, way better quality on a Mavic doing those sideways tracking shots. And sideways tracking shots are a big deal. That's a really important camera movement that yeah, we just kind of can't do in the same way in FPV. It's interesting. That's a way back when I was going to school for film. That's a really popular camera move, and um, I a lot of times, like with my flying, I try to remember these camera movements, especially now that I'm doing more cinematic flying, and I try to kind of base some of my FPV. I always have tried to base some of my FPV flying around these camera movements, and this is one that I just kind of forgot about. Is because we just kind of can't do it. We can't do it properly with FPV. So yeah, that's been really cool to kind of see that. Dan636 says, is 3022 kV too high to run 5S packs on? Depends 100% on the prop size, Dan. You guys just got to watch YouTube do the thing again. Look at this incredible scrolling speed. Wow. Way to go, laptop. You're able to take text and make it go down like nothing I've ever seen. Congratulations. Jesus. Come on. God, there it is. Dragon Wing says, use 4x3. Yep, already. Well, no, I've actually had to go to 16x9 because that's what their output's going to be. So I'm forcing myself to fly 16x9 right now. At first, I was in 4x3 mode, and as soon as I'm done with this gig, I will be going back to flying in 4x3. But yeah, I need to get used to 16x9. Dragon Wing says, and put the OSD elements on the black bars on the sides, easy to see. Yeah, I have the current and something else. Ooh, timer. The timer is the other one that I miss. Yes, DJI has the timer, but it's buried. It's really small text, and as soon as you disarm, you lose it, which is just the stupidest goddamn thing ever. But yeah, I did have a couple of things. Well, and now I still do have the sidebars because I have the thing shrunken down to 80%. But yeah, I'm not. I don't like it. I don't like having the stuff on the sidebars. I like having stuff. What I might actually try is moving these because of how high I have to look with my eyeballs in the DJI helmet. I might try moving all of the OSD elements up to the very top. This might be a part of the problem. This might be why I can't see any of the OSD elements with my peripheral vision. Because, like, yeah, for whatever reason, in the DJI helmet, my eyes are, like, looking all the way up in the damn thing. So maybe putting all of the elements on the top black bar will help me out. But I probably won't put them on the sides because my eyes don't typically track over to the sides. Usually I'm flying, straight forward-ish, and my eyes are moving up and down the center of the view. My allergies are also a hot mess today for some reason. CiottiFPV says, I have the exact same problem with the DJI goggles. I'm always looking up and craning my head up. I tuck in my screen down about 50%, and I move it all the way down to try to help. I tried that. I'm so glad that it's not just me, Dan. I tried that. I tried taking the screen. Jesus, hold on. Yeah, I tried moving the screen down in the adjustments, and that caused a problem where my perception of the middle, my perception of where the middle of the screen was like off, and I was having a really hard time like controlling elevation and just wrapping my head around the up tilt, because in some weird way, like by moving the FPV view down in the goggles, it was really awkward. It felt really, really awkward. I'll probably try it again because I'm also thinking if I move the OSD elements up there, that might be an excuse. But yeah, it's and maybe that's something that if I just leave it alone, I'll get used to. But Yeah, I did try that. I did try pulling the view down with the adjustment, the up down adjustment. Um, I almost thought about turning the crosshairs back on, to be totally honest. Uh, but I don't know. I don't want to get made fun of for having the crosshairs on. Robert Goes Alone says FPV has pilots, DJI has chauffeurs. Michael D says, just now jumping on the screen, is this CiottiFPV Inception? No, Michael, it's just that technology is the worst thing ever. And there's this horrendous delay, again, for some reason on the laptop here. I don't get it. I do the same exact thing every single time I live stream. Sometimes the laptop works. Sometimes it just gives me a giant middle finger. And I didn't think I was going to be able to stream at all. The camera refused to come on for about 10 minutes. And then just at total random, the 18th time I turned it off and on, unplugged it, quit out and restarted OBS, it just magically randomly started working again. So I don't know. It's don't be a streamer. Biggest piece of life advice I can give you is to not be a live streamer. Unless you're like infinitely patient. If you're just infinitely patient and you don't care when technology just catches on fire for no reason, and just doesn't work for no reason, then yeah, you'll be fine. But if you're like me and you get frustrated by technology, no matter what you do on Earth, do not be a live streamer, because it is just absolutely infuriating. Mads Tech is here. What's up, dude? He knows about it, I'm sure. He knows about the live streaming technology nightmares. Daniel Harmon says, iFlight makes a 3D printed GoPro mount for the Nazgul for $30, but why wouldn't you just print one yourself or use one that comes with the GoPro? I have no idea. I've never seen the iFlight 3D printed GoPro mount, so I don't know if maybe it's made of gold or special in some magical way. But those are the only reasons that I could think of that it would work. That it would be worth $30. Go to Brain 3D. You'll get GoPro mounts for a lot less money that are probably printed in even better quality, and it's probably a better quality design because Brian from Brain 3D is like the guy. He's been doing this forever. His prints are beautiful, well designed. Yeah, he's the man. Droid says, if they ask why I'm returning them, say CiottiFPV told me to. Do it, dude. Totally say that. Just be like, I didn't know. No, you shouldn't do that. You should just... because if you do that, they might say, fuck you, you ordered them. That excuse would work on Amazon. Amazon, when you go to do a return, one of the reasons for return is like, I just don't want them anymore. And they somehow let you return stuff. But like if you got them from RDQ, for example, right? If you got them from RDQ and you tried to use that for a reason, I bet you RDQ would say no. GetFPV would probably be cool with that. Pyro Drone might even be cool with that. Newbie Drone probably would be cool with that. But I bet you that RDQ would say no. So yeah, don't do that. Come up with another excuse that's a little bit more, irrefutable, and go with that. Abraham says, we're playing the quiet game so you can catch up. CiottiFPV. Thanks, guys. Expander says, hi, gang. Hi, CiottiFPV. Cool Coyote says, have you thought about Come on, YouTube. God. Cool Coyote says, have you thought about trying the Cinewoop with a head tracker gimbal that Nerk made? No. The whole gimbal on... So Tommy actually called this out. It really doesn't make any sense to put a gimbal on an FPV rig. I've always kind of wondered why people did that. Like, it's cool in concept, but realistically, like, there's just no reason to do it when things like the DJI Inspire and the Mavic even exist. Those are a much better platform for a gimbal. So yeah, the whole gimbal on an FPV rig thing just, it doesn't really make much sense. Watch Tommy's Umagod's most recent video, and he talks much more educated about it. But yeah, I don't know if I'll ever put a gimbal on an FPV rig. FPV rigs are durable, and they're super maneuverable, and they're super yeah, crashable, durable. As soon as you put a gimbal on them, that all goes out the window. And yeah, there are already rigs that are specifically set up to do that. So it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, other than, you know, just jumping on the hype train and doing something that nobody else has done so that a whole bunch of people watch. But you guys know that that's not, you know, I actively try to avoid doing that. I actively try to avoid hyping something up that doesn't make any actual sense just for the sake of hyping it up to get views, to get clicks, to get, you know, you guys to buy stuff. That's not my deal. And I want you guys to buy good stuff that makes sense. I don't just want you to buy everything because I make pennies on the dollar, you know. I would rather you guys buy the right stuff, not waste your money, and then you'll have a couple extra bucks to throw at me on Patreon, right? That's a much better kind of setup in my mind. But that's just me, you know. Everybody has a different sort of approach. This is just the way that I sort of do it. But yeah, it doesn't really make any sense to. There's nothing that a gimbal on an FPV rig does better than an Inspire or even a Mavic Air. And in my opinion, the already existing platforms are actually going to work a lot better because they're designed for it. And it's not like this janky thing where you're like, yeah, building it yourself. And people have already done the work. Let's not redo work that doesn't need to be redone. You know what I mean? Dan636 says the prop size for the 5S 3200 kV is 3.5 inch. Thank you, Dan. Take note, people. Dan posted, initially posted, is 5S too much for 3022 kV motors? That's all he said. And I didn't know the prop size, right? So then I said, I need to know the prop size, Dan. He didn't then just post 3.5 inch and make me have to try to remember what he was talking about 20 minutes ago. He said the prop size for the 5S 3022 kV is 3.5 inch. Take note, friends. Dan knows what's what. So, I gotta get the calculator out. I'm not just gonna free ball it. So, 30. What the hell? Jesus, there it is. It took the calculator like 5 full seconds to open. This 3022 times 1.25. What that does right there, taking that kV and multiplying it by 1.25, what that does is it basically converts that kV to 4S. Do you guys get that? Does anybody need to, I won't know for 20 minutes, but yeah, that's basically what I just did there. So that's the same as 3777 kV on 4S, and that should be pretty much perfect for a 3.5 inch prop. I think you'll be at 100% motor limiting. You might need to bring it down a little bit, but yeah, that's plenty of kV for that propeller size. Oh my God, this is a nightmare. I haven't had an allergy attack like this in a long time. Jesus. Gamma Gonad says I've strapped an Osmo Pocket to a Cinewhoop for gimbaled FPV footage. Works surprisingly well. Though if you crash, it's over. Yeah, that's one of the big problems. Is that exactly that? Yeah, I guess on a Cinewhoop it starts to maybe make sense because there are no DJI Gimbal Cinewhoops, right? So that setup, Gamma Gonad setup, actually makes a lot of sense because the Osmo Pocket is really lightweight. You can put it on a Cinewhoop. Oh man, it's getting worse. I might have to kill the stream at some point here if it gets too bad. I know you guys are not. I know you guys don't love. Nobody loves listening to somebody sniffle and snort. Yeah, but I have not really seen many Cinewhoops with the little gimbals on them. I typically see 5-inch rigs with big giant gimbals. Patrick actually just did it. And it's super interesting, and he put it on his 7-inch rig, but he had it. Like, he had the gimbal, and he had the 7-inch rig, and I can't remember the last time he flew the 7-inch rig. So like he's just doing it to screw around, which is great, and the footage will look super interesting. But for somebody like Nurk, it really confuses me because I'm sure that he's got probably a half a dozen Inspires, and or Mavics. So yeah, I just don't really understand it. But like I said, watch Tommy Umagod's most recent video. He does a really good job of explaining why it's very easy for us to want to use FPV just for the sake of using FPV. And that's not good. We need to use the right tool for the job. And like forcing FPV into a situation where it makes no sense, that's not good. That's not what we want to be doing here. So yeah, J. Drone says, what's up? Avic says, my 7-inch should be here Monday or Tuesday. Very cool. T-Bird says, you would be dangerous if you flew my Mavic Air 2S or 3. Better controller and better camera. Out of the Air? I thought the Air was, wasn't the Air, aren't the Airs lighter weight? I don't know. I don't pay attention to Mavic stuff. I thought the Airs were lighter weight and worse cameras and stuff. Oh, God. T-Bird says, it's funnier making you guess. Then 636 says, yeah, that made sense to me. Thank you for the advice. And you're right, 100% motor limit on all my rigs because, you know, madman. Yeah, this is my allergies are getting real bad. I'm caught up with chat. I'm gonna kill this stream, guys. I'm sorry. I'm just it's getting worse and worse, and it's starting to like make my eyes water and shit, and it's starting to like really clog my face up, and I just want to scream, and I'm already like annoyed at the computer and all this shit. So, sorry, but a little bit shorter stream here for today. I'll be back tomorrow night. I shouldn't be in the middle of an allergy attack for no reason. And yeah, I'll be back at the apartment tomorrow night. We'll get some work done. I think I want to dive back into that Tooth Fairy 2. Tomorrow night is not a giveaway night. So we'll probably jump back onto that Tooth Fairy 2. Oh, God. And start to really get that thing together, since getting the stack situated was a hot mess last week, and it took the entire workbench time. Oh, my God. All right, guys. I'm just gonna kill the stream. I don't really have any footage. I'll put that the little edit for the Mavic 2 up real quick for the end of the stream. Love you. Be good. I'll see you guys tomorrow night, 10 o'clock Eastern. Jesus. Thanks, guys. CiottiFPV.com if you want to keep seeing these live streams. Love you. Later.